Hi, it's Dwyer. It is May 9th, 2025. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Folks, there was a very important heavyweight fight, and I mean extremely important, because I feel the heavyweight title is up for grabs, right? I have a lot of respect for Alexander Usyk. I followed his career for years. I thought when he was a cruiser, he would have a successful heavyweight campaign. I feel that way today about Jay Opataya, one of the cruiserweight champs. But I feel that he is small. I think that a certain type of slugger on his front foot could give him problems. I feel that Daniel Dubois is defensively challenged and uneven in fights. Right? I'm still amazed at him knocking down Usyk. Who cares what the ref has to say? Okay, Usyk gets 5 minutes. When he stands up, I would expect a guy with fire in his belly to target Usyk's stomach, to be throwing predominantly hard shots, and to not give Usyk a chance to breathe. I didn't see that urgency with Daniel Dubois. Also, some of his biggest wins, the win over Philippe Ergovic. Um, let's just say the game plan that Dubois brought with him in the ring couldn't have been to eat the number of right hands that he ate. Right? Even the Joshua fight. He, is dominating Joshua, but understand, he's a bit lackadaisical about it. At the end of the fight, Joshua had a clear opportunity to win that fight, right? Had Joshua taken a step back instead of jumping in the pocket, Joshua looked refreshed. The last few rounds of that fight would have been high drama, right? So understand, I believe the heavyweight division is deep. I think the right guy could take the title. It's there for the taking. Some of the fighters who we think are out of it, Joe Joyce, who suffered some losses, Zhili Zhang, who lost to Ajit Kabayel, I believe they're still very much in the mix. In other words, for gamblers, you really need to look at underdogs in these heavyweight title fights. Now, here you have two guys. Let me just give you my macro on this before I go through the rounds and tell you who I thought won the fight. I was shocked, and I mean shocked, by the fluidity of Efe Ajagba. I was shocked, right? The Efe Ajagba I know is a power puncher. He's loading up on shots. He's looking at Frank Sanchez move around the ring. He's not moving around the ring himself. Now, I'll agree, 299-pound Martin Bakole, doesn't really move around the ring that much, right? I'll agree that Ajagba's not exactly fighting Usyk here, right? He's not fighting a guy with great legs who can move around the ring. But he's moving around the ring, and more importantly, he's confident enough where in the first round he's throwing left jabs to Bakole's body. I was astonished, right? Bakole, you thought, would have put himself in position to throw a right hand over the left jabs. Watch Ajagba closely. In the fight, you'll notice he has his left dangling by his side. Right, folks? He's fighting a right-handed fighter. He had the confidence to do that. He's moving around the ring. Folks, he's circling Bakole in both directions. Right? Let me say this too, and I thought it was interesting. Early in the fight especially, and keep in mind, Ajagba, to me, is one of the hardest punchers in the heavyweight division. Right? He's a righty. His right hand is his Sunday punch. right? He has a left hook, but that right hand is his Sunday punch. Now he's landing it on Martin Bakole, right? It's astonishing. But interestingly enough, and it looks like a hole in Bakole's defense, right? Bakole himself realizes he has to bend at the waist a little bit on his side profile after eating some right hands. And understand, they're thudding to the point where it looked to me like Bakole is hurt at times. But Ajagba is so committed to lateral movement that he doesn't jump on Bakole's backside, right? You know, his back, right? Bakole is this way, has his left ear facing Ajagba. Ajagba's throwing these right hands. Ajagba has ring coverage, right? Both of these guys are taller than you think. Ajagba's landing that right hand. Ajagba doesn't jump to behind Bakole's ear to force Bakole to turn into the right hand. Had he done that, we might have gotten a knockout. Let me break with the public too and make a point here. Bakole comes in weighing 299 pounds. Good for him, because understand his game. He's prepared to let you land some shots. He just doesn't want you hitting him in the head. Right now he has a hole because he got dropped by Joe Parker. And here it looked like if Ajagba had just committed a little bit more to the right hand, he may have gotten a stoppage in the first half of this fight. Now, I know there's controversy over the scoring. I'll just give you my round by round, right? I was a little bit more generous to Martin Bakole than the announcers on the zone, right? Let me just say, too, that Sergio Mora was A+ across the board here. I disagreed with his scoring, but let's just say I was listening to his comments. It was a learning experience for me. He had a lot of great points. He was pointing out things before they became apparent. I thought Ajagba came out. It's a clear first round. I thought Ajagba, who's landing a lot of lefts to the body and is on his back foot, wins the first round. Now, the second round is close. These fights are often decided on close rounds. I gave the second round to Martin Bakole. I thought Bakole's landing the hardest shots. Right? I thought Bakole, framed it in such a way where he looked like the heavier puncher in the second round. Third round, I thought Ajagba really showed you the potential on his straight right hands to Bakole's ear. This is the round that had you thinking, okay, would this matter if Martin Bakole was fighting southpaw Alexander Usyk? Right? Ajagba hits him so repeatedly with this right hand, periodically, that, and it's a heavy punch, that you realize that Bakole couldn't defend it. He simply couldn't. Right? So you understood, okay, this right hand is going to be there for Ajagba. The key, though, is against the southpaw, where, the major punch would be the southpaw's left. The southpaw wouldn't have this thudding right hand on Bakole. So as you see the third round, this is one of the key rounds in the fight. You see Bakole's style and you understand why, as a bigger man who could back up an Usyk, right? Let's face it too. Usyk did stop Daniel Dubois, right? But he doesn't get a lot of knockouts at heavyweight. Tyson Fury makes it both fights. right? Usyk isn't a knockout guy. AJ makes it both fights. Isn't as tested as he is by Daniel Dubois, for example. Right? So you could see where a big guy with the extra weight, who's willing to take body shots, who's there going for a knockout, and who is trying to protect his head. Truth be told, Bakole didn't do that good a job against Ajagba's right hand the first half of this fight. Right? But you could see where a big righty who can protect against left hands might be able to walk him down. That's one of the questions of today's heavyweight division. Right? Can a big man who's willing to take some sharp counters from a heavyweight weighing in the 230s, right? Understand the weight gap with Bakole. There'd be like a 60-pound weight gap, right? Could a big heavyweight walk through the shots and land big punches, right? I believe Zhilei Zhang had a harder time against Ajit Kabayel than he would against Alexander Usyk. Well, let me say, third round, I had Ajagba winning it. The fourth round, Bakole actually gets Ajagba over by the ropes. Right? Sergio Mora on the telecast talks about how Ajagba was too squared up against the ropes. Right? I agreed with Mora. I actually gave that round to Bakole. So we enter the fifth round. Folks, Ajagba takes over. On my scorecard, I had him winning the fifth round. I had him winning the sixth round. I had him winning the seventh round. While both of these guys are very heavy-handed, while both of these guys are typically bigger than their opponents, these 3 rounds are shocking because Ajagba's legs, the spring in his step, his lateral movement, his ability to move in both directions, his back foot was stunning. Right? I gave Ajagba in this 10-round fight the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. So understand, at the end of 7, I have Ajagba up 5 rounds to 2. So then we get to the 8th round. Now, Bakole is forced to pull a move out of the playbook of Ali and Tony Bellew. Right? Ali against Jimmy Young, Tony Bellew against Usyk were fighting men and started begging the guy to come to the middle of the ring to fight them. Right? It was hilarious in the Ali-Jimmy Young fight because, of course, Ali came up being a mover. Right? The Ali of the 60s is moving around the ring. There he was fighting Jimmy Young, and he just couldn't take the fact that Jimmy kept going over to the ropes. Right? Ali didn't want to be alpha over by the ropes. Right? He was a guy who wanted you hitting him. He wanted to rope-a-dope you. He didn't want you to rope-a-dope him. Right? In Tony Bellew's case, Usyk's just moving too much. The fight's competitive. But Bellew couldn't get Usyk to engage. Be careful what you ask for because, of course, Bellew, just a few rounds after that, gets knocked out. It's one of Usyk's few knockouts in recent years. Right? Well, here, in the 8th round, Bakole is demanding that Efe Ajagba, whose movement is magnificent, stop moving and come to the middle of the ring. Right? Well, something happens where Bakole gets lucky, goes on his front foot, actually finds Efe, lands some big shots. Efe actually holds on. It's striking because up until this point he hasn't really had to. I thought it was enough to win Bakole the round. So then we get to the ninth round. The men start trading. Ajagba looks tired. We have to keep an eye on that. Right? Because as they point out on the telecast, he gets knocked down in the second half of the fight by Frank Sanchez. He got roughed up by Guido Vianello in some of those later rounds. Here, I thought he lost the ninth round to Martin Bakole. So at this point, it's 5-4 on my card going into the 10th round. And I thought Ajagba wins the 10th round, right? He's just too mobile for Martin Bakole, right? His challenge is just to keep moving, to not get caught on the ropes, because you didn't get the feeling Ajagba was Ali with his back against the ropes, right? But I thought Ajagba won this fight 6 rounds to 4. Right now, let me just say, based on styles, I'd take Martin Bakole over Alexander Usyk, right? I'm just being real here, right? He got hit with a right hand by Joe Parker. He got hit with a few right hands here by Efe Ajagba, right? Bakole has ring coverage. It's just that he's not a great athlete, right? And he doesn't quite have the angles figured out against a fighter with ring coverage like Efe Ajagba. Understand, Ajagba lands so many of these right hands that Ajagba's corner started to tell him against a heavy-handed Martin Bakole, follow up the right hand. In other words, Ajagba is landing a right hand, then he's leaning back. His corner's telling him, against this dangerous puncher, this 299-pound puncher, when you land that right hand, jump deeper in the pocket. Take the risk. Ajagba was a little bit more cautious. He would land the right hand. He knew he was off to the fast start. He would then lean back and move away. He was content winning the round instead of trying to win the fight in the round. Now, as it is, on my scorecard, he won the fight 6-2. 6-4. Right? A 2-round gap in a 10-round fight is meaningful. But I do think style-wise, because Bakole's problem is with right hands, it's not with left hands. And because Bakole, even in this fight, where his opponent is moving, was able to back up Ajagba in at least 3 rounds up against the ropes, I think Bakole, style-wise, would be a perfect opponent for Alexander Usyk. Right? I guarantee you that if Bakole drops Usyk like Dubois dropped Usyk, he's not going to stand around and then allow a jab to beat him, which is what happened in that Dubois fight. Right? As for Dubois, let's just say Dubois is, fast-handed and heavy-handed. Right? The problem is he doesn't have the movement that Ajagba has. I think both of these guys would be competitive against Daniel Dubois. Both of them. Because Dubois can be hit, as I've said in the past. Look at the Kevin Lerena fight. He's dropped multiple times in that fight. In other words, the punches landing are flush. Also, the Filip Ergovic fight. Again, too many flush punches. I'm telling you that Efe Ajagba landed several right hands on Martin Bakole. Right, folks? Ajagba hits harder than the guy I consider the heir apparent, Filip Ergovic. right? If Ajagba lands as many punches, as many right hands, the same right hands that he's landing on Martin Bakole, if he lands those right hands on Daniel Dubois, Dubois not walking through them. I mean, I'm just telling you, don't be fooled by this fight where Ajagba is moving around the ring. That's normally not his game, right? If he's landing right hands on you, normally he steps in the pocket and steps on the gas to try to take you out, right? He's lifted his game. He'd be a major threat to Daniel Dubois. Of course, you know my thought. I think Martin Bakole is a major threat to anybody in the heavyweight division, right? I congratulate Joe Parker on dropping him. That's a short notice fight, right? Parker's one of the few former heavyweight champ who has the experience and the right hand from distance and the boldness to throw it early in a fight in the heavyweight division. Right, so keep an eye on both of these men. Right, I think both guys would be hazardous to Daniel Dubois. Right, in other words, if Dubois lands on Usyk and beats him, I'm guessing Dubois would be an overwhelming favorite because the public right now is in love with Usyk, right, as it should be. He's unbeaten. He's multi-divisional, right? But the bottom line is, if Dubois wins that fight, he's going to be a big favorite against both of these guys, right? Because Bakole recently lost. Efe Ajagba, I'm not sure how well the public knows him, right? Just trust me on this. He has one of the hardest punches in the heavyweight division. Right? My point to you is that fight, let me also say too, he starts fast here. Right? One of the keys to the AJ fight for Daniel Dubois is the fact that AJ's a cautious heavyweight. Right? AJ starts and he, unless you're straight out of wrestling, unless you're straight out of MMA, unless you're, Francis Ngannou, AJ doesn't like to start that fast. Right here, you see Ajagba early in this fight, landing right hands. Right? I would argue that that's Dubois' kryptonite. Right? Keep an eye on both of these guys. I think of all the men in the heavyweight division, I think Bakole has the best shot to walk down Usyk, right? I thought Tyson Fury, and I understand there's a difference of opinion on that second fight, but I thought Tyson Fury just didn't have the front foot in him to be reckless and to just run over to Alexander Usyk. I believe Bakole does. Right? I thought the 8th round here, Bakole literally after calling Effie to the middle of the ring and Effie refuses, right? He's still circling him. He's looking great on his back foot. You notice Bakole just runs over and has the attitude against one of the hardest punchers in the heavyweight division of, okay, I'm here, let's trade. Right? And I think Bakole's defense, where he lifts his hands, he's prepared to get hit in the body. I didn't see Fury making these trade-offs, right? He's prepared to get hit in the body. He's just trying to protect his head. He has an excellent jab. He's going for home runs. He's not even thinking about a decision at that point. I thought that game is tailor-made for a match against Usyk. Understand, this fight was a 10-round fight. That fight would be a 12-round fight. Right? So to sum up, these are two dangerous men. Let me offer advice to the guys, totally unsolicited advice by a YouTuber, right? I would never fight each other again. It's too dangerous for both. What's the point in fighting another heavy-handed, dangerous opponent? Right? If I'm Ajagba, I think to myself, I was flying at 30,000 feet at the end of the 7th round. I had won 5 of the first 7 rounds. The 8th round, the 9th round, I would say to myself, wow, did this dangerous dude figure out parts of my game? Let me say, too, that I was watching the early rounds. I was astonished by Ajagba's movement. I was surprised. Right? Bakole may have been surprised. Bakole may have started slow because he saw this big guy moving and he thought, he's going to tire out. It's like he's not, this is like Anthony Yard fighting Beterbiev, right? The guy's moving and stuff and you say, this isn't his game. He's not going to be able to keep this up. Right? Let's just say Bakole seemed to have made some adjustments later in this fight. If I'm Ajagba, why would I want to fight him again? I already have cover. People can't claim I'm avoiding a guy who I fought, who more than 50% of the public believes I won the fight. Right? They can call it a draw. Who cares? The fight's a success. I went the distance with Martin Bakole. And people thought I won the fight. I think he won the fight. Right? So there's not enough upside for me to fight him again, especially when my right hands might be enough to overwhelm Daniel Dubois. Right? Let's just say, some guy who's going to stay in the pocket and trade with me is going to be at risk if I decide to actually stay in the pocket. Here, I thought there's a moment in the fight, I believe it's the 3rd round, where Ajagba lands a shot on Bakole, and I'm not sure, because he was moving, I'm not sure he realized how hurt Bakole was. Bakole gets hit with it, and Bakole staggers. But then you notice Ajagba, was pre-programmed. Hit him with the right hand and then move laterally. Right? If Ajagba was a little bit more interactive in the moment, he would have realized this brother is hurt. Why do we have to fight these other 7 rounds? Let me take him out right now. Right? It's clear Bakole couldn't read Ajagba's straight right early in this fight. That's the fight I saw. Let me hear from you. I think both of these men have passed my threshold. They're threats to the throne. I think Bakole is a threat to whoever he fights. I think Ajagba is certainly a threat to Daniel Dubois. Right? The one catch I would say with Ajagba is just that Usyk is excellent moving around the ring. Excellent. Right? Ajagba had the clear advantage on Bakole in terms of moving around the ring. Would he have that advantage against Usyk? That's a question. Right? Bakole's intriguing because Bakole doesn't care if he's hit. Right? Bakole keeps his chin lower too. Right? Ajagba's a little bit higher. Bakole keeps his chin lower. He's more tailor-made for shootouts than Efe Ajagba. But let's just say both of these men are dangerous. Both of these men belong on your short list of men who could be king in the heavyweight division. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.